Hi, welcome to analyzing Alzapúa. I've slightly injured my index finger, which gives me some time to do other stuff like analyzing a little more. This one goes out to Sense, who is constantly encouraging us and motivating us on the flamenco guitar Discord. Thank you, Sense. You're great. I want to compare some guitarists, some maestros, some teachers, and see if there are some common points, some differences. The things I exactly want to look at are they anchoring with any finger when they're playing? Like using the index finger, anchoring on the high E string? Or are they using the middle finger? Or are they not anchoring at all? If they do anchor, do they lift the anchor at the second downstroke? Or not? Is the movement a thumb movement only? Or a wrist and thumb combination? One thing that I was taught in classical guitar is that you have to look for this triangle here. Always have the thumb to the left and the fingers to the right. Do you play Alzapúa away from the hand, next to the index finger, into the index finger, or maybe even into the hand? Short disclaimer, I'm not a professional. I only want to compare the techniques. Those are all great players and most of them are good teachers as far as I know, and that is no criticism, it's just different ways to approach one technique, Alzapúa. And they're all playing a lot better than I do, so no judgment, only comparing. So let's have a look at the pros.
Alzapúa literally means alzar meaning to lift and pua means plectrum. So in the thumb technique in the right hand, it is the use of the thumb and exclusively thumb. There is no other finger used in this to do plectrum, if you like, Alzapúa.
So Juan Martin just said that he is using his thumb to produce the sound only. He's not using his other fingers to produce sound. But if you look closely at his index finger and middle finger, and maybe sometimes even a ring finger, he's anchoring them on the first string. His movement seems very isolated and formed from the thumb joints only. The thumb moves into the index finger.
Alzapúa techniques vary from falsetta to falsetta, and they cannot be classified as rasgueado techniques, since there would be hundreds of different cases with different solutions. We can play it all when we master the ability to balance out the wrist, after the double strum with golpe with the thumb and the ring finger.
This is an excerpt from Flamenco Guitar Lessons Online, the school. I couldn't find the name of the teacher, but he suggests to balance out the wrist, whatever this means. I don't really understand that one, but if you look closely, he doesn't use any anchoring at all. There's a lot of wrist movement, a little to no thumb movement, and he seems to play into the direction of the hand, so into the hand. Atrafana seemingly doesn't talk in his video, but he says that you play a note with pulgar in rest stroke position. With wrist rotation, swing your pulgar hitting 2 or 3 strings below the initial string. Swing up your pulgar hitting the same string and land on the initial string. Alzapúa is done with a wrist twitch. Due to the circular path your pulgar tip follows, you can only hit 2 or 3 strings effectively. Pulgar tip makes small adjustments while the movement originates from the wrist. So if you look closely at his playing here, you can see that he is kind of semi-anchoring or floating the ring finger, not on a string, but on a soundboard of the guitar. He uses wrist movement combined with thumb movement when playing faster, in contrast to the slow wrist twitch explanation he shows in slow motion. The thumb plays into the hand.
So when we're performing Alzapúa, we just want to adjust the thumb angle and bring it into about 45 degrees. That's a nice general rule of thumb. Some people like to take it a little more extreme and take it almost to a 90-degree angle. For me, that's a little too extreme. Now, the actual mechanics of using the Alzapúa are just a combination of using the wrist and the thumb joint. And then the wrist. Now, when you combine that together, lastly, let's talk about stabilization. We have to anchor with the opposite end on the first string. And what we're going to do is use the middle finger. Some people like using the middle finger and the ring finger, but I just mostly use the middle finger to gently rest upon the first string. So you're just resting upwards upon the first string. Now, when you perform the movement, your wrist will naturally take that finger off that first string, but you want to use it as a home base. So anytime you push off, you come back.
David Chiriboga brings a very interesting aspect into play. That's the angle of the thumb. Looking at his playing, he's anchoring the middle finger on the high A string. A little thumb and a lot of wrist movement is to be found, and he lifts the anchor when striking the chord playing slowly and just very slightly when playing faster. The thumb plays into the hand.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, notice this is a wrist movement also. Okay, your wrist is helping your thumb. And I repeat, your wrist, not your arm. So just like we talked about in the pulgar videos, you want to have your index always either touching or very close to the first string. Okay, and this way we get this kind of movement. We want this, not this.
Dan Garcia here clearly says that it's a wrist and the thumb movement, and if you look closely, he's anchoring the index finger very close to the bridge and only lifting it for the second downstroke. The thumb plays into the hand, and it's, as he said, a wrist and thumb movement.
Es fundamental en la técnica del alzapúa que tengamos el ancla, que tengamos nuestro punto de referencia en la primera cuerda. Es fundamental de que usemos la precisión. El alzapúa no es fuerza, es precisión. Lo que nos da la fuerza es la velocidad, pero la velocidad sin precisión no tiene ningún sentido y nos vamos a equivocar completamente.
I'm an absolute beginner when it comes to Spanish, the language, but what he said basically means that it is very fundamental to anchor the index finger as a reference point. And if you look at his playing, he's anchoring the index finger very closely to the bridge, just like Dan Garcia. He also says that precision is the most important key. Speed and force alone doesn't get you far. Observing his playing, you can see that he always uses the index finger, and when he's playing slowly, even the middle finger to anchor all the time, unless he's playing the first string as well. It's a thumb movement only, and the thumb plays next to the index finger, away from the hand.
Notice that you keep the angle properly, this angle here straight. This knuckle should be aligned with the tip of the nail, with the top this way. So this is wrong because the knuckle is very high. So we keep the same rules like with the thumb. I will post in the description. Don't rest fingers, because some people are doing like this. It's kind of a stuff. This is very, look how weird. Just with the thumb, and then don't fall. also the angle should be this angle here. So we have the thumb carefully sanded until it becomes black like this, and you know, in the external part, less nail and then more here. Keep the range short. So let's say you are playing Alzapúa, should be played one note here, which by the way there is only one muscle impinging the strength here. One, the second is a release, and the third is like a coming back of the rubber band. Keep these three fingers stretched out, not with tension, but this way. This is much better, because if you contract it or fist, doing fisting, this is also wrong, or contracting, doing weird things with it. So this thing, here we have the index close to the thumb, not touching here, but close, and these three fingers stretched out, relaxed.
Ruben Diaz has a very interesting approach when it comes to Alzapúa. He has a very set mind on what's right and what's wrong. It's often very different to what we have heard before, and sometimes even contradicting. He clearly states that you don't have to anchor, but if you watch closely, he anchors his index and sometimes his middle finger. He's slightly lifting his anchor when playing downwards, and he has a very steep angle of the thumb. He mostly anchors with the middle finger instead of the index finger, and plays quite differently to what he explains. And the thumb plays into the hand. Narezo from Flamenco Explained shows a semi-anchoring with the index and middle finger. Semi because he only slightly touches the first string and he lifts the fingers when the second downstroke occurs. It's a mixture of wrist and thumb movement, and the thumb moves into the hand. On a side note, he is the most consistent of them all when it comes to playing slowly and playing fast. It really seems like he is using just one technique and it works out just fine. You can clearly see that Moreito slightly anchors with the index finger on the first string, and he sometimes slightly anchors with the middle finger on the guitar as well. He is lifting his anchor on the second downstroke, and there is more thumb than wrist movement. It's mostly thumb and a little twitch with the wrist. Thumb plays away from the hand next to the index finger. In this example, Antonio Rey anchors with the index and middle finger. He lifts the fingers at the second downstroke, and there is more thumb than wrist movement, and the thumb plays into the hand. This is Grisha, and I won't even try to spell his last name due to my respect for him. I just can't do it. He shows that he anchors with his middle finger, and it's a mixture of thumb and neglectable wrist movement. There's hardly any wrist movement, both quick and slow examples. His thumb plays into the hand, and there seems to be no lifting. Tomatito shows a very slight anchoring of the middle finger. He plays mostly with thumb movements, and the thumb plays into the hand. Luciano comes with another last name I don't know how to say, but you can clearly see its wrist and thumb movement. It's more wrist the slower he plays, and there's a very slight anchoring with the index finger on the first string and sometimes with the middle finger as well, either on the first string or on the guitar's soundboard. The thumb plays into the hand, and he's lifting at the second downstroke like many others do, and he lifts heavily when he's playing slowly and just a little when he's playing fast. At these rather short examples, you can observe Vicente Amigo using wrist and thumb movement. The thumb plays into the hand. There's anchoring of index and maybe the middle finger, and he's lifting, as always, on the second downstroke. In this short example, you can see the grandmaster anchoring the index finger very close to the bridge, only lifting it on the second downstroke. The thumb plays next to the index finger, not into the hand and not away from it. Wow, I didn't expect that much diversity in this research. There are a lot of different approaches and opinions on how to play Alzapúa. The comparison shows a heavy preference on anchoring a finger or two on the first string. There's hardly anyone who doesn't anchor at all or anchors on the soundboard. Most of the guitarists compared that anchor with the index finger tend to anchor with the middle finger as well, 5 out of 7. There is a strong tendency towards lifting the anchor for the second downstroke. 9 out of 13 people did it. The majority of the guitarists in this comparison play Alzapúa with a mixture of thumb and wrist movement. The thumb tends to play into the hand rather than next to it. 11 out of 15 people played into the hand. Looking at these tendencies, I conclude that there is no set rule of how to play Alzapúa right, other than that the thumb always is moved. It rather boils down to a matter of preference and experimentation rather than avoiding one variant, although it might fit you better just because one of the well-renowned guitarists or teachers plays it differently. Each guitarist shows a great precision, a strong sound in each of the 3 movements, and very high speed. So it boils down to a matter of preference and practice, practice, practice. If you want to do yourself and the artists a favor, check them out. All the materials used here are to be found on YouTube. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you Alzapúa very soon. Hi, so this is an addition to my Alzapúa analysis. I'm happy to get corrected. I'm happy to talk about these things so we can all learn, and it would be better as a community project, not doing it on my own. This is Pituquete. He clearly lifts here, the first example, clearly lifts at the second example. He slightly lifts at the third. This here is not lifted, but maybe because he does a golpe afterwards. So that's very interesting. Yep, it looks like he lifts. I stand corrected. It's like on and off. Sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't. Next up is Grisha, so let's see. He didn't lift there. It's the middle finger. The index finger lifts. Maybe this was a lift. No, the middle finger is still on the string. That's very hard to see. Maybe there is a little lifting. I don't have a better close-up than this because the other video is not here now. This was the other video, but you can't really see it there. Maybe it's on-off as well. It's very interesting. So on Tomatito was the third one. It's again the middle finger. Okay, he lifts the middle finger if he plays a chord with the thumb afterwards. And now he does not lift it. Now he lifts it because maybe there's a golpe or a chord. Yeah, there's a chord. So it's hard to say, even frame by frame, it's not easy. I'm very happy that we're talking about this. I would suggest to play around. The pros probably don't think about what they are doing anymore, like with every other technique as well. You are really good and proficient when you don't have to think about what you're doing anymore. But practicing it slowly and getting into the first steps of doing a new technique is very much a conscious development. So you have to do it consciously before you get it unconsciously, so to speak. So I would suggest to experiment with lifting ever so slightly. The big lifting probably is okay for slow movements, but precision is the key. And the faster you get, the more little, the tinier your movements have to get. So that's my 50 cents for this, and hope to get another conversation started. And maybe if you want to do another exercise, another technique, we can do it as a community project or as a stream or something. For me personally, after spending some hours on this project, I have to say I don't want to do this on my own anymore. I'm happy to do it together in a community, and if we don't do it, hey, I have more time to practice my stuff, so it's a win-win. Have a good one, everybody.